All cameras typically have the same options and settings, though they may look a little different. Now, before I teach a class, I usually adjust the settings on each student's camera ready for them to take photographs. Now, I generally make these changes in the main camera menu or in the camera's quick menu. So let me show you the changes that I make in the main menu, and then I'll show you how most of those important settings can be changed using the camera's quick menu. So the first thing I would set is the image quality and the file format for the photographs. And you can see that we have two options. We have JPEG and RAW. Now, RAW is the format that most professionals will shoot in. And JPEG, I guess we're all familiar with the JPEG format. Now, if you have absolutely no interest in editing a photograph and you just want it straight from the camera and to be able to use it, then don't choose the RAW option, because RAW photographs need to be edited. They're a much bigger file size as well, which we'll see shortly, but they need to be edited. Where a JPEG, we can use it straight away for social media or whatever we want to do. But as I say, the RAW file needs to be edited. And of course, you need the software to edit it as well. We can see that if we select that large JPEG option, we can take 9,000 or over 9,999 photographs. Now, to me, it makes the most sense to pick the largest JPEG. I can't really see much point in choosing the smaller JPEG sizes. So the JPEG option, it's a compressed photograph. Now, if we look at the RAW option, a RAW photograph is uncompressed and it's a much larger file size. So now with the RAW option selected, you can see that it is dropped to 3,479. Now the RAW files are so much bigger, but that gives you the scope to edit them. They have more dynamic range and more latitude to be pushed and pulled in the editing process. But as I say, if editing isn't your thing, then stay in the JPEG format. And as I say, you can use those photographs are usable straight away. And the other option you have is to shoot in JPEG and RAW at the same time. Now what this does is creates one photograph but two files. So you'll have a JPEG and a RAW file. So why would you do that? Well, imagine you went on an exotic holiday and you managed to capture the best photograph you've ever captured in your life, but you only had it as a JPEG. Well, that might be okay because you may never ever want to edit photographs, like I say. But imagine if you got the editing bug and you wanted to edit that fantastic photograph that you captured, but you only had it in the JPEG format. So I often say to people, if you're going anywhere exotic, then just switch your settings to JPEG and RAW. You may never, ever, ever venture anywhere near the RAW file, but who knows, 6 months, 12 months down the line, you might want to edit the shot. And the thing is, a RAW file has got so much more latitude and scope to be edited. It's a much bigger file size. Just a little idea for you. You don't have to. I know many photographers that just stay in the JPEG format, but RAW, honestly, it gives you all that opportunity and scope and fun to edit a photograph. The next option then I would set is the aspect ratio of the photograph. And you can see that we have a number of different options: 3:2, 4:3, 16:9, and 1:1, which is square. Now I would suggest you leave the aspect ratio as 3:2, but by all means play around with different aspect ratios. You might fancy shooting in square format, for instance. It's entirely up to you, but 3:2 is the most popular format for photographs. The next option to look at then is how the camera reads the light. And this is the metering mode. And we have a number of different options: evaluative, partial, spot, center weighted, and all cameras have something pretty similar. The option I would suggest is evaluative, and that's what I set my camera to. So my camera will read the light from everywhere. Now obviously the other ones are more specific, center weighted or spot, so you can read the light from a specific area of the image that you're photographing. But for me, evaluative works, and especially when you're learning photography and you're a beginner, it's ideal. The next option to set then would be the white balance. And as you can see, we've got a number of little icons that indicate different situations that you might find yourself in. And the first one, auto white balance. And then you can see sunny, shaded, cloudy, incandescent, fluorescent, flash. You can set your own, or you can dial in your own temperature. Now, I would say straight away, the one to choose without a doubt is auto white balance. Believe it or not, just put it into auto white balance and the camera will do a fantastic job. Would I use any of the others? I often set my own custom white balance, but that is when you get to sort of like a professional level where the colours have to be absolutely perfect. And generally, auto white balance gets very close. So auto white balance is the way to go. Now, oddly enough, when you shoot using the RAW format, it doesn't actually write or bake in that white balance setting into the photograph. So you can retrospectively change the white balance of a RAW photograph when you edit it. The next option then would be picture style, and you can choose from many different options: landscape, fine detail, neutral, faithful. Cameras will have their own sort of names for different picture styles. And these picture styles relate to the JPEG format, because when you shoot in RAW, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't record what picture style you've shot in because it just assumes that you are going to edit that photograph later. So it only relates to JPEG photographs. Now, generally, I would put it into standard or automatic or neutral or natural or faithful. As I say, all cameras have different names for them, but you can just stick in the auto setting for the picture style. You can actually go in as well and edit those picture profiles and change the sharpness, the saturation, the contrast, and sort of, if you like, make your own sort of picture style. Would I suggest you do that? Not really. But then again, if you don't want to edit your photographs, maybe it's a good idea to set a picture style that you prefer. It's entirely up to you. So the next option I set then would be the drive mode, and I pop it into single shooting. So that just means you're going to take one shot. So set it to single shooting. You're going to point the camera at an object, a person, a landscape, wherever it's going to be, and you're just going to take one shot. So that's what single shooting means. Different cameras will probably call it a different thing, but that's generally what it is. So I would set that first, but let's just take a look at the other options in the drive mode. So in this particular, we have a high speed continuous mode, low speed continuous mode, and then we have our self timers as well. So the drive mode stays in single shooting unless you want to photograph a moving subject. So any sport and event, anything where there's a lot of fast movement, and you would use continuous burst mode where it takes multiple shots. The next thing then to look at would be the autofocus. Generally what you have is the option to continually focus or focus just once. So if you look at this Canon camera, we can see that we have something called one shot. In most cameras, it will just say AFS, autofocus single. For some reason, Canon called it one shot. It doesn't mean that you're just taking one shot. It just means that you're going to focus once. The other options then for this Canon camera are servo. As I say, Canon call it servo. Most other manufacturers will call it continuous focus or AFC. And then this Canon camera has AI focus, where the camera will decide between either just that single focus or continuous focus. But if we look at the focus modes in this Lumix camera, we have autofocus single and autofocus continuous and manual focus. And generally that's what you would get in a camera. So AFS will just focus once on the subject. Autofocus C or autofocus continuous will continually focus, and you will never use manual focus because you will never focus as good or as well as autofocus. Now, as well as selecting autofocus single or autofocus continuous, we need to tell the camera whereabouts we want the focus point to be. So we can move the autofocus area point around. Now this is really important because you need to put the focus point on the subject that you're about to photograph, and you've got several options. So let's take a look on this particular Canon camera, what options. Now the typical options, because most cameras or all cameras have the option to change the shape of the focus point and, more importantly, where it's going to be in your frame that you're photographing. On this Canon camera you can see we've got a spot autofocus, and then moving along we'll have different options. 1 point autofocus, which is the one I generally tend to use, and then you can expand that so it's that one spot but just several, a little bit of an area around that one spot, and then you can have zones, flexible zones in this particular case, or indeed the whole of the screen can be in focus, which is pretty cool for a landscape. So as I say, all cameras have this option to be able to move the focus point around the screen, and we can pop the focus point on our subject, and we can have a single point, we can have a zone, we can have a flexi zone, we can have the whole of the screen as the focus for a landscape, for instance. And all cameras are going to have this. And it's important because it's part of the fun, isn't it? Because you're telling the camera exactly where you want the focus to be, and you can direct the viewer when they look at your photograph to exactly what you want them to look at. So it's really cool, isn't it? So let's take a look at a few other options then. Another option that your camera might have is the ability to detect a subject. Now, as I say, all cameras are different, but in this particular camera you can see that we can select people, animals, vehicles, and this comes in really handy. Now indeed, I am filming myself using my Lumix camera, and I have face detection switched on and eye autofocus, and that is going to lock onto my face no matter where I move. So I think the detect focus is fantastic. If you are shooting nature and your camera may have animal or bird detection, that's great. It's going to lock onto a bird. If automotive stuff is your thing, then you can switch on the automotive or car detection. It's really cool, and it works really well as well. So that's going to help you with your autofocus. So one of the other options that I like to set is the minimum shutter speed. So what do I mean by the minimum shutter speed? Well, when you select aperture priority, now remember you're choosing the aperture size and the camera will choose the shutter speed. Now I can set the camera to a minimum shutter speed. In other words, when the camera selects the shutter speed for me, it doesn't drop below a certain shutter speed. And I like to choose about 1/125 of a second. If you have that on your camera, a minimum shutter speed, then my advice would be to set it to 1/125. Now the quick menu gives you access to the settings that you use more than others. So it's instead of jumping into the main menu and scrolling through pages of different options, they're right under your finger in the quick menu. Now all cameras have a quick menu, so let me just show you on this camera where it is, and it's just here in the center. Now if you take a look at another camera then, so I have a Fuji camera over here, and I'll show you on the back of this camera where the quick menu is, and it's just here. So like I say, all cameras have a quick menu, and in a lot of cases you can sort of put into that quick menu the settings that you use most, so you can actually customize. So let's just take a little look around a couple of screens, and you can see where the sort of settings live and just get a feel for how it looks. So as you can see, we have access to a lot of things we found in the main menu. So we can change our focus points, we can change our single point focus or continuous focus or AI focus. We have our file format. So as you can see in the quick menu, we have access to most of those important changes we made in the main menu. And this is great because you don't have to go into the main menu and scroll through loads of different pages to make all those changes. They're right under your finger in the quick menu. And of course, you can customize the quick menu in most cases and just have on exactly what you want to be on there. So you can kind of customize it to your liking. It's really good. Now let's take a look at a different camera and I'll just show you the quick menu. This is the Lumix camera and I'll show you how that looks. So by pressing the quick menu on the Lumix camera, it will pop up at the side and you can see the same things. We got the ability to change the focus mode between single and continuous and manual. I can switch on and off the image stabilization. I can select the picture profile. I can select face detection or subject detection. I can see the metering mode. There's so much you can put into the quick menu, and these are specifically ones I've decided to put in there, including Wi-Fi. So I would highly suggest that you jump into your main menu or the quick menu and make some, if not all, of the changes that I've shown you in this module. Now we're getting very close to the point where we'll be starting to take photographs, and it'd be great if you were on the same page and getting the same results, obviously. Okay, I look forward to seeing you in the next module.